Hang on, let me do that again.
Oh my God, fucking hell.
I don't know what's going on today.
Are you going to restart the recording?
No, I'm just going to keep going. Anyway.
How many times would you need to restart? Like, don't worry. That was another tangent.
Are you going on a tangent before we've even begun? Okay, yep. Well, let's begin. So, hello everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Tell Me Where I'm Going Wrong, a podcast where two exes get together and talk about whatever is on their mind or what is wrong in the world that week. My name's Josh. I'm one of the hosts, and the other one is Sean. How are you, Sean?
Hi, I'm the other one, and my name is Sean. I love when you say that, the other one.
Well, I'm one of the hosts, and the other one. Or what else can I say?
It just sounds weird, like the other one.
The other one.
The other one. Yeah, I'm doing all right. I went to the gym this morning, and
oh God, you're such a bro. You're such a gains bro.
Yeah, and vegan gains. Vegan gains growing. Oh my God, I'm coughing now. I said it was fine, and now I'm coughing. How about this? Like, I was coming back in the entrance of my building, and I had my little swipe fob with me to get in the building. But there's I suppose like what do you call somebody who walks around tidying, like a groundskeeper, or what's the term for the person?
Groundskeeper?
Superintendent? Is
no,
that like
that's a very American term.
So they work, and they're often on site.
Estate manager.
Yeah. And they were coming out of the door, so they held it for me because, I saw him on the way to the gym. I see him every time I go to the gym. We always chat.
Mm-hmm.
And he held the door open for me. So I didn't get to swipe my fob to open the door. And the muscle memory was so strong that when I got to the lifts, to the elevators, instead of pressing the button, I swiped my fob thing on the elevator button, the lift button.
Which doesn't have a fob reader
no.
on it, right?
So it was like so strong in me, the steps of, I was on autopilot of getting back to the gym to my flat, was that I have to swipe this, and then I go inside and I press the button. But because my body didn't get to do that, it still wanted to go through the motion and, like experience holding that thing forward. How weird is muscle memory of, like, do you ever do anything like that where you go through the motions of doing something without even thinking about it?
Yeah, especially in the mornings when I haven't woken up properly. Like, I'm very my brain's very sluggish. I mean, my brain is very sluggish all the time, but particularly in the mornings. But let's tell our viewers or listeners about our little trip to Italy, because you mentioned it there in the intro, and I just want to catch everyone up on where we've been. I mean, you told the story a week or two ago, I think, about how we ended up going to San Fruttuoso in Liguria. But it was just beautiful, wasn't it? It was probably, for me, I don't know, it was more beautiful than I had anticipated.
Yeah.
What about you? What was your experience?
Yeah, it was absolutely breathtaking. When I first got there, because I got there a few days before you in Genoa.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Genoa, depending on
who says Genoa.
I don't know. I've heard people say it a few different ways.
Genoa? No, barely know her. Never met her. But it was so stunning there, even. Like, I was just so blown away by the port and the medieval old historic center and the funicular railways. So beautiful. Really stunning.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that the one thing lacking a little bit was the vegan food options in the city. There wasn't a whole lot, but what there was great. Like, I found quite a lot of vegan focaccia, and there was that really wonderful restaurant that you went to first. Called Gianna.
Gianna, is it?
Gianna, I think it's pronounced.
Yeah, that was really tasty.
But I loved it. But to get to San Fruttuoso is a train ride along the coast to Camoli, and then a ferry or a boat ride around the headlands to this little tiny village called San Fruttuoso. And it was like being in a movie, like an Audrey Hepburn. I don't even
Well,
know.
yeah, I posted something on Instagram and I said I felt like Jennifer Coolidge at the beginning of White Lotus when I was like turning up on that boat and you and Hill were waiting at the dock, like waving.
Yeah.
It felt like, yeah, it felt like the
And
start of
did
White
you say
Lotus.
what's her famous line? Is gays are trying to kill me.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And it's hard to explain if you've not seen a photo of this place. It's hard to explain how breathtakingly beautiful it is. So if you want to
Mm-hmm.
stop, pause this, and go and Google San Fruttuoso in Italy,
Mm-hmm.
it was even more beautiful than the pictures
Yeah,
in real
it
life.
was a really incredible place. And I just couldn't believe how clear the water was,
Hmm.
and how warm it was, how many fish were in the sea. I mean, you could just look down at your feet when you were standing in the water and there would just be hundreds of fish around you. It was a really magical place. Um,
Yeah,
Stunning.
it was so. I don't know if invigorating is the right word. Is or
Restorative.
yeah, it was just it was a nice feeling,
Hmm.
more than nice. Like, that's not strong enough to be in the Mediterranean Ocean. I mean, it's the Ligurian Sea, which is an arm of the Mediterranean Ocean. And because it was late summer, I mean, is it autumn yet? Or
Well, officially it is, but yeah.
so the water obviously retained the heat from the seasons before. The water wasn't hot, but it was a beautiful temperature. It was a perfect
Mm,
swimming temperature.
mm,
It was lovely.
yeah.
One of the last night we were there, did you go swimming on your final morning?
No, no.
The water was so clear that, like, the fish around, like, I didn't even have to put that snorkel on or anything to see the fish. Like, I could just
Mm.
look down and the fish were swimming between my legs, and it was just
Mm. Yeah, it was an
bizarre.
amazing place.
But on that final night that we were there, Hill and I didn't want to get out of the water. Like, we were just
Mm.
like, we just want to stay in. Everybody had left. The final boat had gone. That's
Mhm.
another thing about this village. When the final boat leaves at 6 p.m., there's no way, apart from hiking or
Mm.
calling a private boat to come and get you, there's no way in or out. There are no roads to this
Mhm.
village.
Mhm.
And so when everybody had left, there was nobody else on the beach. Everybody was gone, and we were in the water, and the sun had just gone down behind the hill, and the water was weirdly the top layer, like the first sort of few inches of the water started to get cool
Mhm.
because they didn't have the sun on them anymore. So the water
Mhm.
below that felt warm.
Mhm.
It was
Mhm.
so glorious. Like, I just
Mhm.
wanted to stay there forever.
It was a beautiful place, and all along that coast. I mean, I didn't get to explore that much. I spent a couple of days in Genova, um, and do you want to silence your notifications, Sue?
How can you hear that?
Because I don't know, just
I
can.
was just trying to
Um,
compete. I'm trying to compete with your cup bashing.
Listen, I have not bashed my cup today or in the last episode. Um, but I went to, yeah, Camogli a little bit and also Chiavari. I don't know if I'm saying that right. And that was a stunningly beautiful place. I mean, just it's a really, really beautiful part of the world, and I definitely want to go back. I think I don't know how realistic it is, but I said to you, didn't I, that I think the way to do that would be to charter a yacht and spend like a couple of weeks like going down the coast and pulling in at all these beautiful little coves, but I just obviously don't have the
Well,
funds for that. So if any
well,
of our listeners have a yacht in the Mediterranean and want to organize a little holiday cruise, then do get in touch.
well, if any of our listeners have 840,000 euros they would like to give me,
Hmm.
there is a tiny two-bedroom flat for sale in San Fruttuoso,
Hmm.
and that would be amazing to live there.
Hmm.
Like, it would be my dream.
Yeah, so
We
yeah.
we went one day. We went to Portofino, which is a very famous, rich town, or yeah, town, I suppose, around the headland a bit more. And this was wealth central. I mean, there were mansions, like these old historic Italian houses on the hill,
Villas. Mm,
villas. There were there were shops and boutiques, um, all designers like Alexander McQueen. There were super yachts in the harbour,
mm-hmm,
in the port. It looked fake. Like it was so beautiful, and the water was so crystal clear. The sky was perfectly blue,
mm-hmm,
and it didn't look real to me. And well, when you see stuff online where people say, "Oh, this is paradise," or "This looks beautiful," you think that there's like an element of manipulation
mm-hmm.
to it, and you don't think that it's really going to be like that.
Yeah.
Portofino and San Fruttuoso surpassed what I had seen for
Mm-hmm,
beauty. Like it was
mm-hmm.
stunning. And just
Yeah.
going out on the boat was just so I don't know. There aren't words to describe how happy I was when I was
Yeah.
there in the water. Like it was lovely.
It was really lovely. And, I know that it's always easy when you're in places like that, when you're on holiday, to just think like, this is paradise. Of course it's not. Of course, like all the like, societal and personal struggles that exist everywhere exist for people there, but it is just physically, or not physically, but geographically, it is a beautiful, beautiful part of the world.
Yeah.
Um, and I definitely need to go back again.
Well, did you see the day after we left
Hmm.
in it? There was a little bit of clanging
That
then.
was my phone,
Clang, clang, clang goes the
because
trolley.
I was just double checking. Yeah, I was right. Remember when we were there, and I was saying to you a few years ago, pre-COVID, I went to Orlando with my brother and my nieces and my mum.
Yeah.
And anyway, it's like a family holiday in Orlando,
Okay.
and the Universal Resort there. I didn't stay there, but my brother and his family stayed there. I stayed at like a Roach Motel down the road, but they stayed in the Universal Resort, and I've just googled it, and it's called Portofino. They've
Oh,
named it after Portofino, because I was saying, like, when we were at Camogli, or Camoli, I don't know how you say it. It looked very much like that, but yeah, I've just double checked, and it is Universal Orlando Portofino.
well, did you see on the news the general strike that's been happening in Italy? It just started
No,
after the
no.
day after I think I left. A lot of the unions and workers' organizations called for a national strike, general strike in support of Gaza and Palestine.
Oh, really?
And
Wow.
it was in Milan, in Rome, in Genoa, and they shut down ports. They shut down schools and all transport systems through the strike. There were tens of thousands of people in the streets.
Wow.
And
I saw in Genoa. I saw a lot of graffiti on the streets about, pro-Palestine, in support of Palestine.
yeah, there's also, yeah, like a lot of anti fascism and pro
Yeah,
worker graffiti in
yeah.
Genoa. Italy's interesting, isn't it? That it has that history of being a incredibly um, oppressed a place under a dictatorship. And so it must have really given rise to that culture of
Mm,
people being outspoken and approaching things from an activist point of view
mm-hmm,
and very militant about it.
mm-hmm.
I would love to go back there, like
Yeah,
anytime.
yeah.
I wonder what it would be like in winter. What is
It's
the
quite far.
temperature?
It's quite far north in Italy, so I'd imagine they can have some fairly cold weather. I mean, I don't think they would have snow and frost or anything like that, but yeah, they must have some pretty chilly days, and probably some very wet periods as well.
So I told the story about why I wanted to go to San Fruttuoso. It's been like a childhood dream of mine or a bucket list
Hmm.
destination.
Hmm.
Is there anywhere left on the planet that you have that feeling about that you haven't yet visited, but it holds like this sort of magical allure for you? Like you really want to go there?
Yeah, Valparaiso in Chile. So when you and I were living in Brisbane, we started going to Spanish classes around the corner. There was a Chilean woman who just gave Spanish classes in her house, basically. Do you remember her name? Um,
No.
was it Cecilia?
I can't remember.
Anyway, she is. So that's when Sean and I first started learning Spanish, and she was from this city in Chile called Valparaiso, and in some ways, I suppose it sounds a bit similar to Genoa. It's a port city. It's got loads of funicular railways because it built on fairly steep, sort of mountains that go down into the ocean and stuff like that. So, and that to me, like she would use so many pictures of it in her lessons and stuff like that and talk about it with such fondness. And I've looked at pictures and it does look really beautiful. I'd love to get there one day. I've never been anywhere in South America. I mean, I'd love to go to a lot of places in South America, but particularly Valparaiso in Chile. It just looks lovely.
Talking of funiculars, how fun was that funicular or that railway in Genoa that started as like a little train and then it turned into a vertical lift, a
It was
vertical
wild. I've
elevator?
never seen anything like it before.
It
Yeah,
was
it's
so
bizarre.
much
It felt
fun.
like a fairground ride.
But we also went on a really long funicular that had 7 stops. It was like a mini train line, but it went for 7 stops up
Was
the
that the
hill.
one that starts up behind the central station, the main station?
No, which station? Principe?
Principe. Yeah,
Principe? No,
Principe.
it's not far from that, like a 5-minute walk from that. And
Ah,
it um it was like 7 stations. And by the time you get to the top, it feels like you're in the countryside. It's
yeah, I
like
read about that one.
there were like little
Was it the rack
villages.
railway with the cog in the middle, or no?
I don't know. Like it was a funicular with a cable,
Hmm.
and
Ah, okay, no,
there were
something
2
different.
carriages, and so one's going up and one's coming down, and so there's a section where they pass each other at one of the stations. They stop on 2 separate platforms,
All right.
and then they keep going opposite direction, and it was incredible. I mean, the views from up there were incredible. And the I just love this is one thing that I was going to suggest about London. How about London make all the transport free for people who live here
Mm,
and only
yeah,
charge the tourists?
yeah, which
Because
is what they do in Genoa. Yeah.
those funicular railways are free if you live there,
Hmm.
and then all of the tourists have to pay to ride
All of
them.
the public transport is free if you live there. The metro, the
Was it?
buses.
I
Yep.
don't remember that.
Yeah, yeah. Because I used the metro a couple of times and I had my ticket ready on my phone and there were no barriers. And I was like, that's weird. A public transport system with no barriers. And then I read that, yeah, if you live there, it's free. And so they do it on a trust system that, you know, they assume that tourists will do the right thing and buy tickets, which I did. Um, but yeah, it was, I mean, I know that London just could never do that because, the money. You know, we don't have the money. I don't know how Italy and more Genoa in particular, I don't know how it affords to do that. I don't know what
But
tax rates are
why?
like.
But what do you mean we don't have the money? Like we don't have the money to run
To
the
run the
transport
public
system?
transport system, yeah. I mean, it's an
Why not?
expensive, well, because of capitalist forces or because, you know, because it's such an expensive part of the world to live that we need to pay higher wages. And I mean, the wages aren't high enough anyway, but um, then the cost of maintaining a system, it's a huge transport system, and the cost of maintaining it is extortionate. And you know, we don't without that, you know, the city of London, relies so heavily on the income from public transport ticket sales. I don't know what it would do without that.
I don't know. I think things like transport, healthcare, and education should be subsidized through the taxation. Like we pay tax that goes to paying for public infrastructure, roads, healthcare.
Hmm.
But then we also pay the highest public transport costs of anywhere in the world.
Hmm.
How is that possible that other cities and other countries can work out? Or, for instance, when we were traveling by train, intercity train, like Trenitalia, to get from Genoa to Camoli,
Hmm.
it was about €4.50
Hmm.
for one ticket.
Mm-hmm.
No matter if you bought it 2 months before, no matter if you bought it on the day, it was the same price.
Mm.
Up until that train departs, you're allowed to change your ticket at no expense
Yeah.
to a different
Yeah.
train at no cost.
Yeah. I know.
In London, if I wanted to go the same sort of distance, say London to Southend,
Mm.
I would have to buy it 2 months in advance, and it would still cost me about £20 each way.
Yeah.
So how are we living like this?
Well,
Why?
that's because the privatization of public infrastructure in the 80s, and because now all our, well, not all of them, some have been taken back under government control, but you know, the trains are operated by profit-driven companies, whereas prior to privatization, they didn't exist to make a profit. They existed to, make enough money to fund ongoing maintenance and stuff like that. But yeah, it's completely changed the landscape now, and the train network in the UK is ridiculous.
Like, I
Um,
can't afford to go to Sheffield to visit my friends.
yeah,
It is too expensive. And
yeah.
even when I look in advance, even the coach tickets to go are expensive
And
now.
also, you don't always want to plan your life like 6 months ahead. You'd love to be able to you think, oh, what are you doing next weekend? Oh, nothing. Okay, I'm going to come up. I'm going to buy, train tickets. It might cost like 20, £30 each way or something, but it's not like that. You need to plan so far ahead in order to get anything that's close to affordable. Um,
And those early bird prices are just creeping up and up and up
yeah,
anyway.
yeah. And then those tickets are completely, you can't change them.
No.
Totally inflexible. But yeah, it's the state. But yeah, like I mean, I got a train back on the last day from Chiavari up to Genoa, and it was actually Swiss Rail because that
Mhm.
line, that train was terminating in Zurich. And I mean, the Trenitalia trains were nice, but this Swiss train was like luxury. It was so plush. Um, and yeah, it just puts our on rail network to shame.
The Trenitalia carriages, there was 3 different levels you could sit in. So there
Mm,
was the level you got in, and then you could
mhm,
either walk downstairs or you could walk upstairs.
mhm.
A really incredible views from the train as you went along the
Yeah, well,
Ligurian coast.
that's why I was saying I need someone with a yacht, because just like looking out and all these beautiful little coves, tiny beaches, like rocky cliffs. Um, it was just such a beautiful part of the world. I need to go back. But anyway, we probably don't want to tell people, like, talk about it for 45 minutes, because, people should just go there, or not have to listen to us going on and on about it. But it's a beautiful place, and you should go there if you can. Um,
Well, talking about the cost of living in the UK,
mhm,
there's a lot of blame for that being leveled at migration
mhm,
and people moving to the UK.
mhm,
We could talk for hours about this. I mean, we
mhm,
we kind of had a brief chat yesterday talking about this topic,
mhm,
and we talked for a long time about it.
mhm,
But to boil it down to a sort of more succinct statement
mhm.
is that people in the UK have been tricked into thinking that people moving to the UK is the reason why their trains are expensive, or
Yeah.
why the cost of living is soaring, or why
Mhm,
they can't get cheap vegetables, or they can't get healthcare.
mhm.
None of that's not true at all.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
falsehood that's being peddled to people. The reason why the cost of living is skyrocketing and your standard of living is dropping in the UK is because of capitalism and greed and wealth hoarding and lack of wealth distribution.
Mhm,
But we were kind of chatting about how do you get that message out to people
mhm.
that this is what's wrong. This
And
is a class problem, or like a wealth distribution problem,
yeah.
not a migration problem.
And yeah, and I was saying to you on the phone yesterday, I was saying to you, I really think, I really hate to talk in terms of the right and the left, but for the sake of, ease, and for the sake of this podcast, we're just going to talk broadly in terms of right and left politics. But I was saying to you on the phone yesterday, I feel like the left really needs to have frank discussions around migration, because at the moment it's just parroting the language of the right, people like Reform and Nigel Farage. And I wrote something down. I forgot to mention this on the phone yesterday, but I was listening to an interview with Nicola Sturgeon the week before last, or maybe it was last week, I'm not sure. And she said something which really resonated with me. She said, Keir Starmer, by parroting Nigel Farage and saying that immigration is a problem, has only legitimised Reform's argument. So we shouldn't be surprised, or he shouldn't be surprised then, if people vote for Reform because you've legitimised their argument. And I thought it's so spot on. It's very astute. Keir Starmer has just started parroting this bullshit argument about, um, an island of strangers, which is
Yeah.
such a fucking horrible xenophobic term to use in the first
Yeah.
place. And you and I have talked a lot about, how fucking disappointed we are in Keir Starmer. But I do think that, I was saying to you on the phone, I do think that there is a natural sort of fear or distrust
Yeah.
of strangers.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's, I don't know whether that's an evolutionary thing, I don't, something within our DNA or just something we learn by nurture. But I do think that humans have evolved to be somewhat distrustful of strangers, because whether we see them as a threat to our resources or something to be feared. I don't know exactly what where that comes from, but I do think that's natural, and I think by shutting down any discussion around that, we're not actually doing anyone any favors.
But
I think,
the discussion isn't that. The discussion isn't, hey, you are an evolved species who has been socialized into fearing people coming and taking your resources.
mhm,
That's not the discussion. The discussion and the way that people are trained to think about migration is these people are either dangerous
mhm,
or greedy, or the reason you're poor is because of them.
yeah,
So it's not a nuanced
yeah,
conversation that any of
but
these politicians have.
that's my point. Like, so there's this thing exists, like this fear of the unknown, or this fear of strangers does exist within everyone, I think. But the right are monopolizing on that, and the right are coming out with these things like stop the boats, like, that migrants are taking our jobs, that migrants are ruining, British people's lives. Um, Whereas the left don't seem to be, entering into this debate in any meaningful way, other than just parroting what Reform are saying. And so I
But
really think,
what is a meaningful way of having this conversation
well, just to say, like you
from a
said,
left wing point of view?
well, just to say what you said is just to say, look, okay, it's a legitimate concern to be worried about jobs. It's a legitimate concern to be worried about the cost of living. It's, in some ways, you could even say, I'm not saying this is my point of view exactly, but you could say it's a legitimate concern that the landscape of the UK is changing. And I mean, just in terms of like ethnicity, religion, it's okay to have those concerns, but let's talk about it as adults, and let's not jump to, one line slogans like stop the boats. Let's talk about what the benefits of migration are and what the real history of the United Kingdom is. And that is a constantly evolving mix of ethnicities, of religions, of belief systems, and ethics.
Yeah,
And
like this country or any country
mhm,
on the planet, maybe with the exception of something like North Korea,
mhm,
has always been an evolving landscape from a demographic point of view.
mhm,
Like the UK, if you look back at the history of it, even before it was recognized as a modern country,
mhm,
was an evolving, like a revolving door of people, ethnicities, cultures, societies, languages. It
yeah,
always has been.
yeah,
So to think that we now live in a section of history that is somehow unique and deserves to be protected is uneducated. It's
mhm,
ill informed to think that this time period that we live in and this cultural makeup that we have or had 40, 50 years ago
Hmm.
is somehow more special and deserves to be frozen in time
Hmm.
is it's unrealistic and it doesn't make sense based on what we know.
Hmm.
Now, if thousands of years before this time period was constantly evolving, what makes the last 100 years or 50 years of our history more special than the last few thousand years? Nothing.
Yeah.
It's just
And
an imagination thing.
I kind of have to laugh a bit when people talk about, the influx of Islam in the United Kingdom. And before that was even within public discourse, the rates of people attending church, like a Christian church, had fallen so much, in the last century. And yet suddenly all these people are suddenly concerned about Islam. Well, I think a lot of these people are not religious, or they're not practicing religious anyway. So it's like this completely false narrative or a false economy of being concerned about the influx of one religion, when the religious affiliation within the UK has changed so much over the last, you know, 500 years anyway. It's just bonkers. But again, like I feel like the right capitalize on this um, section of society, or this section of public discourse, and um, they're clever, they're smart, and they come out with really, and like we've said so many times on this podcast before, like the demonization of trans people, when trans people are such a minute percentage of the population. um but yet the right and the Christian right have capitalized so well on
Yeah.
fear of the unknown, or fear of the other, that it's become this like this fucking nationwide panic, or not even nationwide. I mean, it goes beyond the UK, like this worldwide panic around trans identities and gender identity. And it's
Yeah.
just like, I feel like the left is really, really getting left behind. And I know that that's speaking broadly. I know there are some people in the left, like we talked about Zach Polanski on this podcast a lot, and how he is trying to maybe drag the left into the modern era. But certainly the traditional left, and by that I mean Labour, have been a fucking huge disappointment.
Well, I also don't see Labour as left wing anymore.
Well, no.
As a movement, I think there are some people or individuals or
Mm.
factions. What's the word? Factions
Factions.
within the Labour Party that are more progressive, but
Hmm.
I do not see it as a political movement or party as a left wing
Mm.
party. I mean, to me,
No,
when you've got,
centrist.
I see elements of right wing in it, because when you've got Keir Starmer, who is the leader of that party, using rhetoric around migration that echoes the sentiments of the far right,
Hmm.
that to me is not a centrist party
Mm.
anymore. Or when they talk about privatizing or have made moves to continue privatizing the NHS, or when they take away disability allowance from people, or when
Mm.
they um, use anti-trans talking points,
Hmm.
or when they uh, I mean, like, go on and on, right? You can name all of these things that they do that are in no way even a centrist position. Like,
Yeah,
that's
when
not,
they cozy up to people like Dump.
yeah. Or
Yeah.
continue selling arms to Israel and take like 2 years of a genocide to
To
recognize
finally
Palestine.
recognize the statehood of, yeah,
Yeah.
Palestine. I know.
But will not come out and even use the term genocide.
Mm.
So yeah, there's nothing centrist about that. There's
Mm.
nothing moderate about their position on all of these topics. It is bordering on far right.
Mm.
So yeah, to me the Labor Party is a lost cause from that point of view. As a progressive person, a working class person who cares about social justice, I don't really think there might be a few people in the party, but as a whole, they don't. I've been thinking the last few days, one of my favorite songs of all time is Walls Come Tumbling Down by the Style Council. Do you know that
Mm.
song?
Yeah, it rings a bell, but I can't hear it in my mind.
It's a pop song from the 80s. And it's about people rising up against corrupt government and governments that control people.
Mm.
You'll know it when you hear it. But there's a line in it that says, um, are you going to get to realize the class war's real and not mythologized? And what the people in power and the media in the UK have done a really good job of doing over these last few decades is stripping back the working class's belief in fighting back against the institutions that control them and placing that blame on people outside of our
Yeah.
system. So
On migrants
refugees,
and trans people.
trans people, migrants, refugees,
Hmm.
countries on the other side of the world have nothing to do with us. So they've
Hmm.
stripped back what used to be a really strong, similar in Australia as well, really stripped away the power of unions and working class people who organized to fight back against oppression and get them to blame people who've got nothing to do with
Do,
our woes. Like
do
all of
you?
the things we talked about at the beginning, like the cost of living, train prices, the NHS crumbling, the
Mm,
cost of groceries, everything. Like my apartment is three times the price in more than three times the price in London than what I was paying in Sheffield. And then
yeah,
even in Sheffield, that was too much for working class people.
yeah,
So all of that we're talking about, zero of those things that we're talking about have anything to do with refugees. It's all
yeah,
to do with capitalism and greed and wealth inequality.
yeah. And I think I wonder whether that downturn in sort of working people's, and I don't even really like to use the term working class because I mean it doesn't really, it traditionally it doesn't really apply to what we're talking about now because I don't consider myself working class, but I don't have a very high paid job. I have to live with my mum because I've got no fucking chance in hell of trying to afford anywhere to live, to rent, or to buy, as a single
Mm.
person in London doing the kind of work that I do. And so I'm not traditionally working class, but I'm also not, I don't. I think those old labels that we have, working class, middle class, upper class, they don't really apply so much anymore. I think there needs to be some new terminology. But But if we're going to just uh, for the sake of this podcast, just use those terms, do you think that downturn in the working classes kind of notion of fighting back and fighting for rights, do you think they've been worn down over the last few decades by the increased wealth disparity and
Yes.
how you conceive just rich people getting richer and richer? And I mean, you've got fucking billionaires, like multi-billionaires, trillionaires. Like it's there's capitalism is at fault for all of the ills of society, and
Yeah.
yet, yeah, the right just takes these um, easy targets and uses them and dangles them as
Well,
baits in front of people.
that's right. And I think it's important to recognize once again when we talk about the right, we also now need to include the Labour Party because the
Yeah.
Labour Party is peddling the same sorts of messaging
Hmm.
to control people and oppress people
Yeah.
that parties like Conservatives, Reform, BNP, whoever
And like Nicola
have been
Sturgeon
doing.
said, it's almost like it's a knockoff version of reform. And so yeah, like if you legitimize reform's argument, don't be surprised if they go and vote for the better version of it, which,
Yeah.
I say that in inverted commas, of course. But yeah, like if you're legitimizing the arguments of the right, um, then what do you expect? So yeah, I feel like there's a massive void in
Yeah.
politics.
Also, when people felt life was fairer, or they had more opportunity or chance, or there was,
Yeah, well, like like I saw something the other day, and it was saying like people don't understand that it's just not feasible for most people in London, particularly. It might differ in other parts of the country, but in London, like to think you can afford to buy a house when
I know.
you're sort of like in a lower level paid job. I mean, forget it. It's just
Yeah, I
beyond.
mean,
It's out of reach.
I was I was talking to a friend of ours who's buying a house, and the house that she was looking at was, I think, about £840,000.
Mm,
Now, I don't even know how to work out how many years it would take me to even earn that amount of money on the
mm,
money that I earn. And I'm not even the lowest paid person in London. I mean, I'm certainly not, I think I'm below medium wage in London for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
So, let alone all of the other costs of living considerations I would need to make. If I was somehow magically able to save everything that I was paid in a month,
Mhm.
I don't know how long, like decades maybe, before I would.
Oh, I think it would be a lifetime, and
Right.
that's it. Like that's what I mean. Like I don't, I couldn't get a mortgage for a place in London because the banks know that I would never,
So
if I lived and worked for another 50 years, which I'm
yeah,
obviously not going to because
yeah,
I'm 49 now, I wouldn't be able to pay it off. And so, yeah,
yeah.
it's just,
So this is where the nuance in the messaging needs to come in. When people are upset that they can't afford a property to live in and that they won't have that sort of level of security that was afforded to the generations before them, they won't be able to pass property down to their children to give them somewhere to live. It needs to be made clear to people that that has nothing to do with refugees or
hmm
migrants. Nothing.
yeah, yeah,
Why has the price of a house in London in the 80s gone from £50,000 to 1.5 million in 45 years?
hmm
That's nothing to do with refugee.
I know.
How has a
And
refugee or a migrant made that price increase? That's unbridled greed. It's
yeah,
capitalism,
yeah,
and it's exploitation and wealth hoarding.
yeah. And we we talked about this on the phone yesterday, but there is quite clear evidence to show that migration can, migrants have a net economic benefit to a country. Migrants don't come here to, go on to benefits. Migrants come to the UK to try and live a better life, probably. I mean, not always, but generally speaking, to try and they come here to have a better chance of living a life than maybe where they've come from or the situation they've come from.
Well,
And,
I understand what you're saying, but
yeah.
a part of that that's problematic to me is using what they can give us from a monetary point of view
Oh, yeah, yeah,
as a
yeah.
measure of value of why we should let them come here.
No, I know.
Whereas, really, as decent humans, we should say, hey, they have no food or water or
Mm,
no security. They need somewhere
yeah,
safe to live and they've got little kids.
yeah.
They should
But
come here.
no, but I'm saying if you're going to use that argument of like, oh, refugees are coming and living in hotels and using our money, and then the counter to that should be no, shut the fuck up. Like, they are coming here because they've experienced hardship, and we are a very wealthy country in comparison to where they've come from, and they probably want to come here and work and contribute to society and pay taxes and actually have a net economic benefit to you and to the rest of the country. um, yeah, I don't think we should be looking at people from overseas as a resource which we can harvest or mine. I mean, that's really problematic. But I just think then when that argument comes up about refugees, getting benefits and being put up in hotels, it's just it needs to be shut down from the start, But of course, the right are just fanning the flames.
Um, Also, like if you go back to the 60s or 70s and into the 80s, working class people were really a lot as a movement of people. The majority of them were against racism and fascism because there were memories of lessons learned from global conflicts that were
Mm,
passed down from the generation before, where people would say, hey, you've got to resist tyranny and oppression of people, and you
I
know,
don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if I agree with that. I
I
think
think people are,
there are a lot of right wing movements in the 60s, 70s, 80s
yeah,
in
but
the UK.
but I think that people were racist, but people were more willing to understand cause and effect or the root of the problems. I don't,
I
I think
no,
people are more connected to the class struggle in times go by. I think people have forgotten that we are in a class struggle. I think that's what's happened. I think people have been hoodwinked into
yeah,
believing
yeah,
that it's refugees
that's true.
and
Yeah.
trans people. I think that that's what's happened. And I think in a generation ago, people were more connected to workers' rights and were willing to stand alongside uh, other minorities to get workers' rights or to fight the class war.
Mm,
Whereas now, people have been socialized into believing that the enemy is are these other minorities.
mm,
And back in generations gone by, people were more willing, like we talked about, like the miners and the queers joining forces. I think you
mm.
would really struggle to have that now. I can't see it as a possibility that two social movements like that would come together like they did in the 80s. Um, or you
Well,
would have,
there aren't really any social movements to come together anymore. I don't. There isn't this huge, apart from maybe in recent months, you've seen a huge upswelling in like the Free Palestine movement.
yeah.
But there aren't really many other large scale social movements happening in the United Kingdom at the moment. There's not a lot that brings people together.
And a lot of the unions have been smashed and
Yeah.
dismantled, and people the greed of corporations that
Mm,
stop people from even being able to join unions.
yeah.
So some workplaces like don't allow unionizing,
Mm,
and they have campaigned for decades. These corporations and capitalism has campaigned for decades to demonize unions,
hmm
and unions were often places, obviously, they had lots of problems with sexism and racism in unions like across society, but
hmm
they were also known as bastions of social justice. And unions
Yeah.
would often stand up for minorities who were being targeted by the same forces that were targeting working class white people as well.
Mm,
And they were often on the forefront of standing up for women's rights or for
hmm
LGBTQ rights, um, or migrant rights. And so now that the power of unions has greatly been diminished in this country and all around the world,
mm,
the rise of those forces of oppression against those minorities is running unchecked because
mm,
we don't have people on the front line, such as unions, to organize and fight back. And
mm,
then you've got the media and people in power swooping in to fill that vacuum to explain to people and to trick them into believing that it's refugees and Muslims and trans
mm.
people who are ruining their lives and making their life so difficult.
When
It,
really it's wealth, the hoarding of wealth. So it's people like Elon Musk, it's people like the fucking royal family who
Mhm.
are just like leeches. I mean, they
Yeah.
hoard this wealth. There is no moral or, there's no real economic justification either for any individual or family being allowed to accrue and hoard such wealth. There needs to be
Why
wealth
would
dis
somebody want
Well,
to be a billionaire? Why?
I mean, not wanting to, give Elon an easy pass or anything, but I think there is a, an inbuilt thing, whether it's nature or nurture, I'm not sure, but there is that need to accrue resources, and I think that's built into all of us. I think that's why we don't you know, if you open your kitchen cupboards or your fridge, you'll have more food than you need in there for the next 2 days, probably. I think there's an inbuilt thing in us, in our DNA, perhaps, where we think that, you know, hoarding of resources is important for our survival, and we do it naturally. But now, the sort of the most important resource that is that we have in society now is money, which is just so awful. It's so wrong. It's everything is just upside down. It's back to front. Like, money shouldn't be the resource that we should be accruing as a society, but that's what it's become. And, was
Or
it?
if you're going to accrue money, it should be evenly distributed. It shouldn't be 1% of the population has 99% of the wealth of a country or a
Yeah.
society.
And I think you can't legislate to stop people from hoarding money completely. I mean, there are societies that do that. And I'm talking from a very uninformed place, but people talk broadly about places like Cuba, communist countries where the accrual, is that the word?
Yeah.
Or the accumulation of wealth is not permitted.
But
But
even that, there are people in those societies with more than other people and
yeah,
more privilege. I mean, look how
definitely,
the leader of North Korea lives compared to the
yeah,
population.
yeah. So,
Like
but
what's that? My favorite line from The Simpsons, um, where Homer's they're talking about something, and someone says, "In theory, that would work," and Homer says um, something about, "In theory, communism would work."
yeah,
In
in theory,
theory,
communism works. Yeah,
in theory,
yeah.
yeah,
But no, I mean, yeah, and I'm not advocating for a society where no one is allowed to accrue anything, but I think there have to be limits. There have to be caps, and there have to be limits to that. And there aren't. I mean, there's just you look at how the rich people just keep getting richer, and how there is any need for somebody to accrue anything more than like 500. Being generous, 500 million pounds or dollars. Why would anyone need to accrue that much wealth in the first place? And secondly, why would
yeah,
anyone need to accrue more than that? I mean, it is just, it's robbing people of
yeah.
the right to a free and fair chance at life and happiness, within a capitalist framework.
And
Um,
also, the people who have this amount of money always seem to have the worst politics. Like, it seems to go hand in hand.
oh, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you very rarely have someone who's a billionaire who, well, I
Well,
think
no, because
if you had good politics, you wouldn't be
if,
a
if
billionaire.
you, if you cared about social justice, you wouldn't be accruing that much wealth in the
Yeah,
first place. I mean, yeah, I think that, I mean, we spoke about Luigi Mangione before, and him killing the CEO of the health insurance company.
yeah,
And again, we're not advocating that, but you can see why somebody gets into a situation where they just see this flagrant display of wealth, and this societal apathy towards that, and
yeah.
think, I need to fucking do something about it. We need to change the
Or
system.
maybe he wasn't even thinking, I need to do something about it. Maybe he was acting out in obviously like an unsettling way.
Mm,
And, but maybe it was just like frustration that this is so overwhelming that
mm.
I feel so helpless about it.
Well, yeah, we feel powerless because
Now,
there's nothing.
is it a bit cheeky that we're talking about rich people hoarding wealth and I'm wearing a Gaga t-shirt?
Well,
Um,
yeah.
I mean, she's got
Where's
hundreds of
that? That's a
millions of
new
dollars.
one. I've not seen that one before.
No, you've seen it before. It's the jazz album one
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
that
yeah. You haven't worn
um
it in a while.
but someone like Taylor Swift is a billionaire. But a lot of us don't look at her. I mean, we're not fans, but a lot of us don't look at her as like an evil force of capitalism.
Mm,
But she would have had to make um decisions that aren't ethical to become a billionaire. No matter how nice she is or how much she speaks up for queer rights or whatever she does, you can't become a billionaire without engaging in some unethical behaviors, right?
well, yeah, but I think we all do unethical things.
Yes,
I mean, I could say I'm unethical
yes,
because I will walk past somebody on the street asking for money, and all right, I don't have cash. I never carry cash anymore, but I could go home, make them something to eat. I've
But
got food in my
that's not
cupboards.
unethical. That's
Well, no, it is. It's the same principle of that. Like, I don't want to give up my resources because I'm scared of what would happen if suddenly I need those resources. You know,
but yeah, I
I
think
think
there
it
is a
comes from the
sliding
same
scale. I
place.
think there's a sliding scale to be had for nuance of this discussion
Yeah,
of
but
somebody like
Taylor Swift, you know,
okay,
like
like
I'm not
charging £180 for a concert ticket instead of charging the minimum that you could get away with to charge.
yeah, I
There's a
agree that
difference between that or having like, selling T-shirts that, I don't know, this might be made in China or Portugal or somewhere in a sweatshop,
hmm,
like selling like 1 million T-shirts a year and you're not really stringent about where they come from or where they're sourced from.
hmm,
There are other things. You not giving away making a sandwich for somebody is very different to somebody making hundreds of millions of dollars or pounds a
yeah,
year through
yes,
exploitative business practices.
yeah, but you know, I'm not a Taylor Swift fan, and I wouldn't defend her to the death or anything, but I also think, you know, she gives a lot of money away to charities and to individuals. She gave, I think, everyone on her last world tour, I think she gave them like a huge bonus, like $100,000 each or
Yeah.
something. You know, I think she does give.
Once again, that concentrated wealth that she's accumulated
Hmm,
is only being shared with the small group of people. Like
yeah,
it's not being distributed broadly, fairly. Like it wasn't given to the people helping Katy Perry's tour. It wasn't being given to independent bands playing little venues. It was given to the small group of people, maybe up to 100 people working on out of how many billion people on the planet was
yes.
sharing in that accumulated wealth, which was the probably the GDP of some small nations.
Yeah, but again, not to give her a free pass, but you know, I think when you become a pop star like that, you have a whole machine or operating around you. All of those people need to get paid. All of those people want their cut. And so I think Taylor is so incredibly hardworking. I think she probably works from fucking sun up to sundown every day doing something. And I think it's impossible for her to operate ethically within a capitalist framework. I
Mm-hmm.
just think you know, the problem all along is capitalism. You know, that's citing one of our favorite podcasts again, as we always seem to do, on the maintenance phase podcast. One of Aubrey Gordon's famous catchphrases, I even got it on a t-shirt, is "It was capitalism all along." Because whenever they look at, you know, that podcast tends to focus on diet culture and weight loss,
Mm-hmm.
and body shaming, but they often come to the similar conclusion at the end of the day that it's actually capitalism uh, at fault at the end of the day. And I think, you know, singling out Taylor Swift, somebody who I think probably does give a lot of her money away to needy causes, is somewhat unfair because um, the problem is capitalism.
But I don't think
And
it's singling her out to point out that to accumulate $1 billion, you need to engage in unethical business practices. That's not singling her out. That's just
mm,
speaking truthfully about the
mm.
situation.
But I think you look at
The
it, it's
situation should be that nobody becomes a billionaire and
yeah,
more people have more comfortable lives.
yeah. But you know, it's proportionate, isn't it, to the value of what you have? You know, like we went on that holiday to Italy last week.
Mm-hmm.
Now we could have not gone on that holiday. We could have given the money that we spent on going on that holiday to people who are much more needy than we are, people who don't have anything to eat. We could have donated that money to people in Palestine, in Gaza. We didn't. We made a choice to spend our money on ourselves, or to hoard that wealth or privilege to ourselves. And so I think when you talk about someone like Taylor Swift, it's very disproportionate because of the level of privilege and the level of wealth that she has in comparison to someone like you and me.
Yeah,
And but yeah, like it is an endemic. It's a problem that is endemic to capitalism.
yeah.
And no matter where you sit on that scale, there's almost always going to be somebody worse off than you. And we are allowed to accrue limitless resources, limitless amounts of money. And for the very low percentage of people who have billions, there should be structures in place to mandate that is redistributed to people who
Yeah,
need it more.
well, there should be people should get to a. There should be a wealth cap, right?
Yes,
There should
exactly.
be an amount of money that you can get. No human could ever spend more than that in their life.
Hmm.
And then anything you generate after that should be somehow redistributed
Hmm.
to people who need more. And I'm not saying that means people don't have to work. Like you know, like there needs to be a better system of
Hmm.
accruing and distributing wealth.
Yeah.
Also, money and wealth are fabricated concepts
Mm.
that we've created and that we've allowed to rule us. When really, this is something else we spoke about briefly yesterday. The real problem are there are too many humans on the
Mm. Yeah.
planet
Yeah.
for the natural resources that we have. So
Yes.
what's going to happen? It doesn't matter if Elon Musk and Lady Gaga and Taylor Swift are billionaires. If there's no more fucking water, it doesn't matter how
Mm.
much money you've got.
Yeah.
So
And
what's
that's the thing. And like overpopulation or population growth ties in so neatly, so perfectly with xenophobia and migration politics. That yeah, it's like a marriage made in heaven. Um, but yeah, there are too many people on the planet, and the birth rates and population growth um, rates are much higher in developing nations, in countries with non-white majorities. And so there are so many elements of racism that come into the overpopulation argument as well. But yeah, I mean, we need to tackle population growth, and we need to tackle capitalism, um, and climate change, and all of these things, wealth inequality. But it's that I don't see anyone having real meaningful or bringing really meaningful arguments or debates to the table. I just see the right capitalizing on all of those fears and all of those inequalities and coming up with, not victimization, but like scapegoating.
Mhm.
And yeah, I don't know what will change. I don't know how things will change.
There are some countries around the world that are doing have approaches to social justice that are making differences. So you get some countries that have certain policies around homelessness or drug use, and that they are more compassionate and thoughtful approaches to social justice concerns, and they have positive outcomes.
Hmm. Like, can you
Well, I can't
give
think
me
of
an
it.
example?
Well, I look at countries that have relaxed drug laws and
Yeah.
where they have a more progressive approach to recreational drug use, and
Mm.
it lowers incarceration rates.
Hmm.
It people have more access to um, medical
I'm
interventions.
I'm so cynical and jaded that my suspicion is that they've done that because they can't afford to keep people in prisons. I mean, we did an episode a while back about how much it costs to keep someone incarcerated. It costs, I can't, what was it, like 90,000 pounds a year or something to keep someone incarcerated. But also because by decriminalizing drugs, governments stand a chance of perhaps making money from the sale of drugs
Yeah,
rather than the
I
wealth.
believe that when you look at somewhere like the US, I think that it is driven by capitalism, the
Mm.
shift around, especially marijuana. I think
Hmm.
that that is the reason. But there are other countries, particularly countries in Europe, that have come from it from more of a social justice thing, like years ago. That they're looking at um, decriminalization as a social justice issue. They're not
Hmm.
looking at it from a capitalist point of view, and so that has been proven to work. Or places that look after homeless people, where they have protective housing and programs to help nurture and put people back on a positive path and look
Mm.
after people's mental health and give them access to the shared wealth of the community has a much better return on investment. And so those sorts of things are
But then
happening.
that still frames individuals as money making machines
Well,
in it.
no, it's about framing people as worthy of um, dignity, and it
Mm.
frames society as a whole as being responsible for the individual, which is what we need. Instead
Mm.
of this neoliberal kind of idea of everyone's out for themselves, it's dog eat dog, your
Mm.
family hoards all the wealth. It's about sharing the responsibility for our collective and individual well-being. And we
Mm.
can do that through things like decriminalization, homelessness campaigns, looking after people's mental, sexual, physical health, uh, people's working situations and rights at work need to be fairer and kinder. Looking after the environment, not exploiting people, animals, or resources. In societies where they have more progressive things like that, there is like there's less conflict and there's less need to blame anybody. But we live in a society where the blame factor has been ramped up to a really high degree because the the structures that we have are not socially about social cohesion. They're about protecting individual wealth, and they're not about looking after the broader community. So that we need to change is to have more community-minded approaches to wellness and social cohesion.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to end the episode on a real downer, but I have to say I feel very pessimistic after
Oh, of
this
course, yeah,
talk because
yeah.
I don't think I think we've gone beyond the point of no return. I think when you said what you just said about exploiting resources with the planet and animals and humans, I think humans have taken a path which is inherently exploitative. And I don't know that we could ever go back to a place where that doesn't happen. And so I think the way that the population growth is happening around the world, it's going to lead to more conflict. It's going to lead to more inequality, and it's going to lead to much more exploitation or over exploitation of resources. And I feel very, very miserable um, when I think about what we've done so far and what's to come. I don't see anything getting better. So I hope I'm proven wrong. But
But
um,
it will take the efforts of our societies to do that. We need to organize again. We need to, like the Style Council song, "Walls Come Tumbling Down." Maybe we can put a link to that. That can be the song of the episode that we link to.
mm,
The class war is real. So they were singing about this in the 80s, that people were being tricked into thinking that the class war was mythology, that it wasn't a real thing that impacted their lives, their daily lives.
mm,
That message is as real now, or maybe more than it was then, because we've been hoodwinked even further into believing those things that we should care about aren't real, and that what we need to care about is, back then they would have been talking about, you know, uh, outside forces like Russia or communism as being our biggest threat, whereas really the community's biggest threat back then was still capitalism.
mm.
And we're still here living in a class war that is being invisibilized by capitalist forces to make us believe that it doesn't exist. But you and I are sitting here as living proof that it's real. The people in Italy, trying to fight for Gaza are living proof of it. People working minimum wage or living wage, if they're lucky, in London having to travel 2 hours, they're proof that the class war is real. All of these things, the NHS crumbling around us, all of this is proof that the class war is not mythology, that it's real and it's rooted in capitalism and individualism. and that we need to work collectively to change the way that we operate as a society to make sure that everybody is looked after to the best of our abilities.
But just to be devil's advocate here, how can we use the tools of capitalism to fight capitalism? I think we just shot ourselves in the foot.
We don't. We need to change the system.
Yeah, but how do you exist? You cannot exist outside of capitalism.
Well, in the one and a half minutes that we have left, I'll give you the answer of how to change.
Please do.
Anyway, so if you're...
I thought you were really going to give us the answer.
No. If you want to make a change, you need to be the change. I know that's really simplistic and a bit hokey to say it, but, like how we run the open mic to help build social capital and give people a safe space. Or I've run vegan events for 15 years where I've made a little bit of money sometimes. A lot of the time I've made no money, but it's helped build social capital and give equitable opportunities to people. We can try and operate within a capitalist system in a fairer, more equitable way. And I know they kind of like butt heads, like equity and capitalism aren't good bedfellows, but it's the best we've got, and we've got to do the best we can in a shit situation. And so working at places like Made in Hackney, where we help try and challenge food insecurity, or not voting for people who are fucking openly racist, or demanding healthcare that your taxes pay for, demanding that you have access to that. Like, we all need to collectively come together, like we are collectively coming together as an international community to stand up and call attention to the genocide in Gaza. Like, we can do things if we work together.
All right, folks. We'll put some links in the show notes. We're not going to do our usual outro, but you know where to find us. Links are wherever you're listening or watching this podcast episode. And we will be back in your feeds next week. Until then, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and fight the power.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.